It is time. A year. We've been waiting for this. It's a year in the making. It's time for another edition of this.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Now it's time for Brady Quinn's Explosive Mock Draft. Number 1.
The Jacksonville Jaguars. They start off a new era with a new head coach, one that I'm oh so familiar with, in Urban Meyer, trying to rebuild back up what was really an expansion team, had some of its moments in the past. But I got to be honest with you folks, if you were looking at taking a young prospective quarterback to build your franchise around, they happen to hit the jackpot, because Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson is going to be an absolute stud. He's more athletic than I think anyone realized. He can throw from the pocket. He can throw on the run. It's an absolute laser show anytime he's on the field. He will be and is the number 1 pick of my NFL mock draft 2021, our first edition, the first pick. It is Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson, Jonas. There's no surprise here.
I'm surprised. The comments he had in Sports Illustrated, you're still going to draft that guy number 1? I don't know. Not on my team. I need somebody who's all locked in on football and only focused on football and has no life outside of football. I think that's a disaster of a pick, to be honest with you.
Well, then I'm glad I picked him, because were you trying to save him for your bottom 10? Is that what you thought was going to happen?
Listen, I'm not giving away any surprises here. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in my bottom 10. Doesn't matter.
Number 2.
Number 2, the New York Jets. They find themselves, well, I guess you'd say in a familiar position now. We saw just a few years ago them select Sam Darnold, number 3 overall. But with the recent transaction trading him to the Carolina Panthers, it opens up the next worst-kept secret in the NFL, and that's that they need a quarterback. And it sounds like, again, this is not the quarterback that I would necessarily identify as the second best, but it is the one that they've identified as the one they think can turn around the New York Jets franchise. That is Zach Wilson out of BYU. He goes number 2 overall. Look, this young man had a special season this past year for BYU, really showcased his arm talent and ability to articulate his arm, to extend plays, to throw off platform, meaning he doesn't have to set his feet. He can throw on his run and do some special stuff. He reminds me a lot of Derek Carr coming out of Fresno State. But Zach Wilson's the number 2 overall pick in this year's draft.
And now, do you think he'll do what a former BYU quarterback did once, Jim McMahon, when he was drafted by the Bears? He got out of the limo when he pulled up to the Bears facility and he was drinking a beer. Just got out of the limo, had a beer in his hand. Rookie in the NFL and met the owner.
I do not imagine that that's going to be the case.
That's too bad.
I could be wrong. Bad.
Number 3.
Number 3 is the San Francisco 49ers. Remember, folks, they traded up to this spot, and you really only sacrifice this sort of draft capital with the Miami Dolphins unless you've targeted a quarterback. And we've talked about this at length, right? Why would you trade up to number 3 and potentially get the 3rd best quarterback in this draft class? Well, they might not think he's the 3rd best. Because remember, Robert Saleh, the head coach for the New York Jets, he used to be the defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. I imagine they talked about who they liked, who they were going to take, and it might be different than the San Francisco 49ers and what they're thinking. So San Francisco, even though they have a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, his contract, well, there's not a ton of dead cap on the books if they want to move on from him, and there may be some willing suitors to trade him. So I've got the San Francisco 49ers taking Justin Fields, the quarterback out of Ohio State, to put a dual-threat quarterback in Kyle Shanahan's offense, something that is going to be explosive. He's going to be a run threat. And even though he's not a finished product by any means, there's no better play caller than Kyle Shanahan in the NFL for maximizing a young passer and playing to his strengths. So it's Justin Fields going to the 49ers, number 3 overall.
Oh, wow. So you could make some money on that because Mac Jones is the favorite. You can make some plus money.
It's gone back and forth. That's right. It was Justin Fields last week. It's now Mac Jones.
Number 4.
Number 4 is the Atlanta Falcons. Really the first spot you're looking at saying, well, they don't need a quarterback, right? They've got Matt Ryan. He's under a gigantic contract, and the Falcons can't get from underneath it. They do have a new front office. They do have a new head coach. Arthur Smith now takes over, and I got to be honest with you, I think him taking over has a lot to do with the fact that Matt Ryan is there. similar skill set, maybe even less athletic than what he saw or had in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill. And so I don't think they need a quarterback in this spot. I think if they want to get one, they can in the later portion of the draft. So the Atlanta Falcons at number 4 overall, they just take the best prospect overall. And that is probably what would have been the number 1 wide receiver, but he is no doubt the number 1 tight end, an absolute Adonis, and that is Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida, to match up with the playmaking ability of Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. My goodness, who's going to be able to stop this group, Jonas?
All right, be honest with me. When you get together with other quarterbacks and quarterbacks who have run into either a bad franchise, not enough around them, they've taken a beating at certain points during their career just based on the lack of talent, do you guys get together and look at Matt Ryan and go, that lucky bastard, man? Like, he ends up with every weapon. Julio Jones, Roddy White, Kyle Pitts, Michael Turner, Devonta Freeman, Tony Gonzalez. I mean, it does not stop. Calvin Ridley. How many more weapons can one quarterback get? You've got to get together with quarterbacks and look at this guy and go, who the hell is this guy? Why does he get all the luck? Why does he get all the talent around him?
You know, I never thought that, but now that you brought that up, yeah, I kind of am jealous. I mean, he's literally thrown to at least 2 Hall of Famers.
Crazy.
And probably some others that were perennial Pro Bowlers or guys. I mean, Calvin Ridley's a stud. He's going to be on a great career path. You had Roddy White when he first got there. I mean, he has had a lot of guys to throw to. So I think you're right. I mean, maybe I've underscored that, but when you look at his production, when you look at the production of a guy like Matt Stafford, you kind of forget he came into the league with a future Hall of Famer in Calvin Johnson he was throwing to. So that does make life a little easier, but that's also, I think, what the thought process is here. They're going to be a work in progress on defense. We've got to outscore opponents, and that's what they're doing by getting a guy like Kyle Pitts.
Number 5.
The Cincinnati Bengals, man, I mean, what can you say about them? It looks like they found their quarterback for the future in Joe Burrow, and what did we see last year? Couldn't stay healthy. That offensive line was atrocious last year, and Joe Burrow got beat up because of it. So what do you do when you've got the number 5 overall pick? Well, they picked up the phone a number of times, potentially thought about trading back, but here's the problem. They feel like Penei Sewell, the left tackle out of Oregon, is too good to pass up on, and this guy would be a perfect fit for the blindside left tackle spot. That allows them to move around some pieces too. If you don't remember, Jonah Williams, who's the first-round pick from a couple years ago, they can now move him to right tackle. It helps solidify the edges. It helps them potentially improve too and play their best 5 offensive linemen on the field to protect Joe Burrow, so he's not dealing with having to recover from a torn ACL once again. But it's Penei Sewell out of Oregon as the number 5 overall pick.
Do you have any concerns that he's going to come back and there's going to be any issues?
Trade alert.
Oh my God. Hold on a second. Oh my God, there's a trade alert? Hold on.
There's a trade alert. In fact, the number 6 pick, the Miami Dolphins, and remember, the Dolphins traded out of number 3 back to 12 and then back up to 6, right? They traded with Philly, and so now the Dolphins are trading back, and it's with the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, who were originally at number 9, Jonas, I think they've identified a quarterback. And look, this is the trade stipulation, okay? Denver gets the number 6 pick overall this year. Miami slides back to number 9 in the first round, but they also get Denver's 3rd-round pick this year in 2021, which is number 71 overall, and Denver's 5th-round pick, which is number 152 overall, to make this move. So some decent draft capital there, a couple of quality chances to get some good players, but it looks like the Denver Broncos have identified a quarterback, and they have. It's Mac Jones out of Alabama. He goes number 6 overall to Denver. Even though John Elway's not the man in charge as George Patton, they are still trying to find the heir apparent to replace what was the Hall of Famer Peyton Manning, really the last quarterback to bring them that sort of success. So looks like the writing's on the wall for Drew Lock, Jonas.
Wow, I thought for sure it was going to be Trey Lance. I'm stunned that you think it's going to be Mac Jones. Stunned that you think Mac Jones is the guy there. Wow, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe you need to talk to some people.
Number 7.
You need to talk to some people. Number 7, we've got the Detroit Lions. And look, they had a big-time trade this offseason as Dan Campbell has taken over as head coach. You saw them allow Matt Stafford to move on to L.A. In exchange, they pick up Jared Goff. But this is a roster that it needs some help, and it could be defense, it could be offense. But right now they know this. If they want to maximize what they got in exchange for Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, they got to find him someone to throw to. And so that's going to be the first wide receiver taken in this year's draft, which is a deep draft, one with a lot of talent. Jamar Chase out of LSU. Even though he sat out this past season, his 2019 film was too good to pass up. He ends up being the go-to guy for Jared Goff for at least this year as the Lions are looking at rebuilding.
Number 8.
The Carolina Panthers are number 8 overall, and there's some different directions they could go here. It was a young defense last year, spent a lot of their draft capital on that side of the football. Now I think it's gonna have to be someone to help Sam Darnold, their big trade acquisition. So it ends up being left tackle Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. Number of guys they were looking at, but they feel like Slater is going to be the most versatile and the next solid player to help maximize the Sam Darnold trade.
You know how depressed Panther fans are going to be because they've been hearing trade rumors, movement, this, and this. Maybe we'll get a quarterback. We get Sam Darnold, and then you just settle on an offensive tackle. It's the smart pick, but offensive linemen don't really get fan bases excited when you draft them high. It just doesn't. It's not a sexy pick.
I think that's the biggest mistake you can make because one of the biggest things Tampa did this offseason, they took Tristan Wirfs last year in the draft. Look how well that offensive line ran the football in the playoffs and protected Tom Brady by the end of the year. Tristan Wirfs was the best offensive tackle, and it paid off dividends for Tom Brady.
Number 9.
The Miami Dolphins now are picking. Remember, they dropped back from that number 6 spot. They've been jumping around left and right. Well, now they find themselves in a spot with a need for a playmaker, and Jamar Chase might have been a guy they contemplated, but now they've got Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, and we know his background. He went to Alabama. There's a couple of wide receivers who could potentially, pick at this point in time. One, though, they've got too many questions about, and that's Devante Smith. So they're not going with Smith. Instead, they're going with Jalen Waddle, the speedster who can play special teams as well as take the top off of a defense. Jalen Waddle ends up being the number 9 overall pick to the Miami Dolphins to pair with Tua Tagovailoa.
Number 10.
The Dallas Cowboys run out the top 10 of this year's draft, and they've got some big-time needs, in particular on defense and at the cornerback spot. And look, Alabama won the national championship for a reason. There was a lot of talent there, and probably no one better showcased than Patrick Surtain, the cornerback from Alabama. A plug-and-play cornerback, one that is an absolute lockdown corner that should be able to help that defense be able to kind of turn the page moving forward under Mike McCarthy. So this is the point of the draft where I think you're going to start to see a run on cornerbacks. Patrick Surtain is the best of the group, Jonas, so Dallas gets some help on defense.
And there it is. Brady Quinn's 2021 explosive mock draft, the top 10, a blockbuster trade. That was really well done.